Welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. Tonight, we are going on a journey through the greatest basketball league the world has ever seen, the NBA. From its humble beginnings in small gymnasiums to the bright lights of sold-out arenas, the NBA has given us some of the most remarkable stories in all of sports. Stories of triumph, of heartbreak, of players who defied the impossible, and moments that will never be forgotten. There is nothing you need to do right now, no place you need to be. Just relax, breathe, and let the stories carry you. We begin tonight at the very beginning. Part 1, The Origin. The NBA was not always called the NBA. The league was founded in 1946 as the Basketball Association of America. It was a small, struggling organization with just 11 teams, playing in ice hockey arenas that were mostly empty. The sport itself was considered a minor pastime. Nobody believed professional basketball would ever compete with baseball or football for the hearts of American sports fans. But a handful of dreamers believed otherwise. In 1949, the Basketball Association of America merged with a rival league called the National Basketball League, and the result was the National Basketball Association, the NBA. There were 17 teams at the time. Many of them folded within a few years. Cities like Waterloo, Iowa, and Sheboygan, Wisconsin once had NBA franchises that no longer exist. The league was rough around the edges. Players were paid very little. Some had second jobs in the off-season just to make ends meet. Nobody could have imagined what the NBA would one day become. Part 2. The Shot Clock That Saved Basketball. In the early 1950s, the NBA had a serious problem. Teams would take a lead late in a game and simply hold the ball. No dribbling, no passing toward the basket, just stalling, standing still, waiting for time to run out. In one infamous game in 1950, the Fort Wayne Pistons defeated the Minneapolis Lakers by a score of 19-18, a final score that looked more like a football game than basketball. Fans were furious. Attendance dropped. The league was losing money and losing fans fast. Then came Danny Biasone. Biasone was the owner of the Syracuse Nationals. He was not a tall man, not a flashy man, but he was a smart man who loved basketball deeply and refused to watch it die. He sat down one day with a simple math problem. He took 2,880, the number of seconds in a 48-minute game, and divided it by 120, the average number of shots teams took in an entertaining game. The answer was 24. Biasone proposed that teams be required to attempt a shot within 24 seconds of gaining possession. If they didn't, the ball would turn over to the other team. The NBA adopted the 24-second shot clock in 1954. The effect was immediate. Scoring went up, games became exciting, fans came back. The 24-second shot clock did not just improve basketball, it saved it. And Danny Biasone, a quiet bowling alley owner from Syracuse, changed the sport forever. Part 3. Bill Russell and the Dynasty. There has never been a winner in American professional sports quite like Bill Russell. Russell joined the Boston Celtics in 1956 after winning a gold medal at the Melbourne Olympics. He was tall, intelligent, and possessed a gift for defense and rebounding that had never been seen at the professional level. What followed over the next 13 years was something almost impossible to believe. The Boston Celtics won 11 NBA championships between 1957 and 1969. 11. They won 8 in a row from 1959 to 1966, a streak that has never been approached in any major American professional sport before or since. Russell was the heart of every single one of those championships. He averaged more than 20 rebounds per game over his career. He blocked shots before the NBA even kept official statistics for it. He studied opposing players obsessively, memorizing their tendencies so he could predict their next move before they made it. But Russell's legacy goes beyond basketball. He played during one of the most turbulent periods of racial tension in American history. He faced discrimination in hotels that refused to serve him, in restaurants that turned him away, in the city of Boston itself, which he had a complicated and painful relationship with throughout his career. Despite all of it, he competed, he led, he won. In 1966, Bill Russell became the first black head coach in NBA history when the Celtics named him player coach, and he won 2 more championships in that role. Bill Russell passed away in July of 2022 at the age of 88. The NBA retired his number 6 across every team in the league, the only player in history to receive that honor. Part 4. Wilt's 100-point night. March 2nd, 1962, Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was not a glamorous setting for the greatest individual performance in NBA history. The Philadelphia Warriors were playing the New York Knicks in a small arena more known for chocolate than basketball. There was no television coverage, no national radio broadcast, just a few thousand fans watching what they thought would be an ordinary regular season game. By halftime, Wilt Chamberlain had 41 points. Chamberlain was unlike anything the sport had ever seen. He stood 7 feet 1 inch tall and weighed over 270 pounds, but moved with the grace and speed of a much smaller man. In his rookie year, he averaged 37 points and 27 rebounds per game, numbers so extraordinary that many people assumed they must be exaggerated. They were not. On that March night in Hershey, Chamberlain kept scoring, and scoring, and scoring. His teammates began feeding him the ball every possession. The Knicks tried everything to slow him down, fouling other players to keep Wilt off the court, stalling with the ball, doing anything to stop the inevitable. Nothing worked. With 46 seconds left in the game, Wilt Chamberlain caught a lob pass and powered through 2 defenders for a short field goal. 100 points. The crowd stormed the court. People were screaming. A teammate handed him a piece of paper with the number 100 written on it in pen. That is the only known photograph from that night. Wilt in the locker room afterward, holding that small piece of paper, smiling quietly. To this day, no player has scored more than 81 points in a single NBA game. Kobe Bryant did that in 2006, and it was considered almost untouchable. Wilt's record sits 30 points higher, and it has stood for over 60 years. Part 5. The ABA and the three-point line. Not everyone who shaped the NBA was actually in the NBA. In 1967, a rival basketball league was born, the American Basketball Association, or the ABA. It played with a red, white, and blue basketball. It had loud music and flashy promotions. It felt like the future of basketball even before the NBA did. And it had one rule the NBA didn't: the three-point line. The ABA's three-point line rewarded players who could shoot from distance. It opened up the floor. It created drama with every deep shot attempted in the final seconds of a game. The NBA dismissed it. League officials called it a gimmick, a carnival trick, something that would never belong in serious basketball. The ABA also had Julius Erving. Known as Dr. J, Erving played with an artistry that had never existed in professional basketball before. He glided through the air. He dunked from impossible angles. He made the basketball look like an extension of his own body. The two leagues battled for nearly a decade. They competed for players, for cities, for fans. In 1976, the war ended. The leagues merged. 4 ABA teams joined the NBA: the San Antonio Spurs, the Denver Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers, and the New Jersey Nets. The NBA absorbed Dr. J. It absorbed the spirit and style of the ABA. And in 1979, it quietly adopted the three-point line. The gimmick that serious basketball would never accept is now one of the most important elements of the modern game. In today's NBA, teams attempt more three-point shots per game than at any point in history. The ABA may be gone, but its fingerprints are all over the sport you watch today. Chapter 5.5: The Players Who Never Got Their Ring. Some of the greatest players to ever set foot on an NBA court never won a championship. Charles Barkley played 19 seasons. He was powerful, relentless, and one of the most dominant forwards the game has ever seen. He won the league MVP award in 1993. He went to the finals once and lost to the Chicago Bulls. He never got his ring. Patrick Ewing spent 15 seasons anchoring the New York Knicks. He was the cornerstone of a franchise that sold out Madison Square Garden night after night. The city of New York loved him deeply. He gave everything he had, every single night. He never got his ring. Karl Malone was perhaps the most consistent power forward in NBA history. He scored more points than almost anyone who ever played the game. He appeared in the finals twice alongside his longtime teammate John Stockton, and both times, a man named Michael Jordan stood quietly and firmly in his way. He never got his ring. These men are not failures. They are reminders that greatness and championships are not always the same thing, that a career can be extraordinary and still end without that final piece. Some nights, the greatest players simply meet an even greater one, and the ring goes somewhere else. Remember their names and honor everything they built. The game of basketball will always be richer for every single season they gave, ring or no ring. Part 6: Magic and Bird Save the NBA. By the late 1970s, the NBA was struggling again. Television ratings were poor. The finals were being broadcast on tape delay, meaning fans watched the championship games hours after they happened, buried late at night in the schedule. Drug use among players had become a public scandal. Attendance was down in many cities. Serious people were asking whether professional basketball had a future at all. Then came two college players in the 1979 NBA draft, and everything changed. Earvin Magic Johnson was selected first overall by the Los Angeles Lakers. He was 6 feet 9 inches tall and played point guard, a position typically reserved for much smaller players. He smiled constantly. He passed the ball with creativity and joy that lit up every arena he entered. Larry Bird was selected 6th overall by the Boston Celtics. He was quiet, competitive, and possessed a shooting ability and basketball intelligence that bordered on supernatural. Where Magic was warm and expressive, Bird was cold and calculating. They had already faced each other in the 1979 NCAA championship game, Magic's Michigan State team defeating Bird's Indiana State team in the most-watched college basketball game in history. Now they were in the NBA, and their rivalry would define the next decade. The Lakers and Celtics met in the NBA Finals 3 times in the 1980s. The games were physical, dramatic, and deeply personal. Magic and Bird pushed each other to levels neither might have reached alone. Between them, they won 8 NBA championships during the 1980s. They appeared in 12 finals combined. They transformed the NBA from a struggling league into a television sensation. David Stern became NBA commissioner in 1984 and used the Magic-Bird rivalry as the foundation for a global marketing explosion. By the end of the decade, the NBA was one of the most watched sports leagues on the planet. 2 players from very different backgrounds, from very different cities, who genuinely did not like each other for years, had saved professional basketball together. Part 7: Michael Jordan. There is no story in NBA history told more often than the story of Michael Jordan, and yet it never loses its power. Jordan grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. As a sophomore in high school, he was cut from the varsity basketball team. He was told he wasn't ready. He went home that day, closed his bedroom door, and cried. Then he practiced every day, before school, after school, on weekends, in the gym, alone, long after everyone else had gone home. Jordan was drafted by the Chicago Bulls with the third pick in the 1984 NBA draft. The Portland Trail Blazers had the second pick that year and chose a center named Sam Bowie instead. It is considered the most costly draft decision in NBA history. Jordan arrived in Chicago and immediately became something the league had never quite seen: a player who could score from anywhere, defend anyone, and whose competitive desire seemed to transcend ordinary human motivation. But championships did not come easily. For years, the Detroit Pistons stood in Jordan's way. The Pistons were physical, aggressive, and had a specific defensive scheme known as the Jordan Rules, a set of instructions designed purely to foul, bruise, and frustrate Michael Jordan every time he touched the ball. It worked, for a while. Jordan grew stronger. He built muscle. He studied film. He recruited teammates who could share the burden. In 1991, with Scottie Pippen beside him and Phil Jackson coaching, the Bulls finally broke through. They defeated the Pistons and then the Lakers to win Jordan's first championship. It would not be his last. The Bulls won 6 championships in 8 years. Jordan retired twice, once in 1993 after the murder of his father, during which he briefly pursued a career in minor league baseball, and once in 1998 after the second three-peat. He never lost in the NBA Finals. 6 trips, 6 championships, 6 Finals MVP awards. Michael Jordan retired with a finals record of 6-0. That is a number that belongs in a different category from all other basketball statistics. Part 8. The Dream Team. In 1992, the rules of Olympic basketball changed. For the first time, professional NBA players were allowed to represent the United States at the Summer Olympics in Barcelona, Spain. What assembled on that roster has been called, without much argument, the greatest collection of basketball talent ever gathered on a single team. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Scottie Pippen, Clyde Drexler, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Chris Mullin, Patrick Ewing, and a young player just beginning his NBA career named Christian Laettner. The team was called the Dream Team. Their opponents knew, before the games even started, that they had no chance. Players from other countries asked for photographs with the American players before tip-off. Some admitted later that they were so in awe they forgot to play competitively. The Dream Team won every game by an average of nearly 44 points. They won the gold medal without a moment of drama or uncertainty. But their impact was not the winning, it was the watching. Billions of people around the world saw Magic Johnson smile and pass behind his back. They saw Michael Jordan soar. They saw the best basketball on earth being played in broad daylight on an Olympic stage. The 1992 Dream Team did more to globalize basketball than any event before or since. A generation of children in Europe, South America, Asia, and Africa watched those games and decided they wanted to play basketball. Many of them eventually made it to the NBA. The world game that exists today grew from that summer in Barcelona. Part 9. Kobe and Shaq. They were the most dominant duo of their era, and they could barely stand each other. Shaquille O'Neal arrived in Los Angeles in 1996, 7 feet 1 inch, 325 pounds, and possessed of a physical power that made him essentially unstoppable near the basket. When Shaq wanted to score, very little could stop him. Kobe Bryant was drafted the same year, out of high school at 17 years old. He was obsessive, technically brilliant, and burning with an ambition that had no ceiling. Together, they won 3 consecutive NBA championships from 2000 to 2002, the first three-peat since Jordan's Bulls. But the partnership was fractured by ego, by competition for credit, by fundamental differences in personality and approach. Shaq was loose, social, and larger than life. Kobe was solitary, relentless, and consumed by the pursuit of greatness. They argued through the press, through teammates, through management. The tension inside the Lakers' locker room was an open secret throughout the league. In 2004, Shaquille O'Neal was traded to the Miami Heat. The partnership was over. Shaq won 1 more championship in Miami. Kobe won 2 more in Los Angeles, including back-to-back titles in 2009 and 2010, earning Finals MVP both times and silencing years of questions about whether he could win without Shaq. Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash on January 26, 2020, along with his daughter Gianna and 7 others. He was 41 years old. The grief that followed was unlike anything the sports world had seen in a generation. Flowers appeared outside arenas across the country. People sat in silence. Players wept openly. Kobe Bryant was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame later that same year. Part 10. LeBron and the Chase. LeBron James was known before he ever played a professional game. At 16 years old, he appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated under the headline, "The Chosen One." He was drafted first overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2003, a hometown kid from Akron, Ohio, carrying the hopes of an entire city on his shoulders before he was old enough to rent a car. LeBron's career has been defined not just by talent, but by movement, by reinvention, by choices that were scrutinized more than those of any athlete of his generation. In 2010, he left Cleveland for Miami in a television special called The Decision that many found painful to watch. Cleveland fans burned his jersey in the streets. In Miami, he won 2 championships alongside Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Then he returned to Cleveland. In 2016, LeBron James delivered the city of Cleveland its first major professional sports championship in 52 years. The Cavaliers trailed the Golden State Warriors 3-1 in the NBA Finals, a position from which no team had ever come back to win. LeBron led the comeback. He made one of the most famous defensive plays in Finals history, a chase-down block from behind with under 2 minutes remaining in Game 7 that preserved a tie and turned the momentum of the entire series. The Cavaliers won that game and the championship. LeBron James stood on the court afterward and wept. After all the hate, he had finally brought one home. The summer of 2016 changed everything. LeBron James had just delivered Cleveland its championship. The Warriors had just finished one of the greatest regular seasons in NBA history, winning 73 games, breaking the record the Chicago Bulls had held for 2 decades. And yet, despite all of that, they had lost the finals. Golden State was not going to let that happen again. In July of 2016, Kevin Durant made a decision that shook the basketball world. Durant had spent 9 seasons in Oklahoma City. He had won a scoring title, he had won an MVP award, he had taken the Thunder to the finals in 2012 and pushed them close to returning in 2016. He was one of the 2 or 3 best players on the planet. And he chose to leave, signing with the very Golden State Warriors team that had just eliminated him in the playoffs that spring. Thunder fans burned his jersey in the streets. The city of Oklahoma City grieved. Critics called it the easy way out. The move ignited one of the most heated debates in modern basketball about loyalty and legacy. But someone was left behind in Oklahoma City, and he had something to prove. Russell Westbrook had been Durant's teammate for 8 seasons. They had come into the league together, grown together, and pushed each other toward greatness side by side for nearly a decade. Now Westbrook was alone. Rather than crumble, he exploded. In the 2016 to 2017 season, Westbrook averaged a triple-double for the entire year, double figures in points, rebounds, and assists across all 82 regular season games. He became only the second player in NBA history to accomplish that feat, joining the legendary Oscar Robertson, who had done it back in 1962. He won the MVP award that season. Every game felt like an answer. Every performance felt like a message directed at everyone who had ever doubted him or chosen to leave him behind. Oklahoma City had lost Durant, but they still had one of the fiercest and most passionate competitors the game had ever produced. Meanwhile, the Warriors with Durant were nearly impossible to stop. Stephen Curry, already the first unanimous MVP in NBA history, continued to change the way basketball was played at every level of the sport. His shooting range and release speed inspired a generation of young players to shoot from distances that had once seemed unreasonable. Together, Curry and Durant led Golden State to championships in both 2017 and 2018. The roster they assembled, Curry, Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, was widely considered one of the most talented starting lineups ever assembled in professional basketball. LeBron James gave everything he had in both finals appearances. It was simply not enough. But in 2019, the dynasty finally cracked. Kawhi Leonard, traded from San Antonio to Toronto the previous summer, had spent the season quietly rebuilding. In Game 7 against Philadelphia, he caught the ball near the baseline with 4.2 seconds remaining and released a shot that bounced on the rim 4 separate times before falling through as the buzzer sounded. Canada had never experienced anything like it. The Raptors advanced and did not stop. In the finals, they faced a Golden State team devastated by injury. Durant tore his Achilles and Thompson suffered a serious knee injury during the series. Toronto won in 6 games. Kawhi Leonard was named Finals MVP. Canada had its first NBA champion. Then, the world stopped. In March of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic brought the NBA season to a sudden and jarring halt. Players were warming up in arenas when the news broke. Within hours, everything had stopped. For months, nobody knew when basketball would return. The league responded by creating what became known as the Bubble, a sealed environment at Walt Disney World in Orlando where all remaining teams lived, practiced, and competed in complete isolation. Nothing like it had ever been tried in professional sports. All games were played in empty arenas. The silence was heavy and strange. Inside that silence, LeBron James led the Los Angeles Lakers to the championship, winning Finals MVP for the 4th time in his career. When the final buzzer sounded, he fell to the floor and wept. It was one of the most unusual and deeply moving moments in the history of sport, and one of the most quietly real. The NBA from 2020 until now. When the Los Angeles Lakers won the championship inside the bubble in the summer of 2020, nobody could have predicted what the years ahead would bring. What followed was something the NBA had never seen before. A stretch of basketball so unpredictable, so full of first-time champions and unexpected heroes, that it rewrote what fans thought they knew about how dynasties were built. In 2021, the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA championship, ending one of the most dramatic finals in recent memory against the Phoenix Suns. At the center of it all was Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis had grown up in poverty in Athens, Greece, the son of Nigerian immigrants who sold goods on the street to survive. He came to the NBA as a teenager who barely spoke English, skinny and raw and unknown. The Bucks drafted him with the 15th pick in 2013, a selection most teams passed on without much thought. By 2021, he had become one of the most dominant forces the sport had ever seen. He stood 7 feet tall, ran like a point guard, and played with a ferocity that felt almost supernatural. In Game 6 of the finals, with Milwaukee needing a win to clinch, Giannis put up one of the greatest individual performances in finals history. 50 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks. He stood at the free throw line in the closing seconds and converted the shots that sealed the championship. The boy who had grown up with nothing held the trophy with everything. The 2022 championship brought the Golden State Warriors back to the top. Stephen Curry, after years of watching teammates come and go and injuries derail seasons, finally won the one individual award that had eluded him, the Finals MVP. He had 4 championship rings, 2 unanimous MVP trophies, and had changed the way basketball was played across every level of the sport. And yet, some had questioned whether he could carry a team on his own when it mattered most. In 2022, he answered that question definitively. Then came Denver and Nikola Jokic. Jokic had been drafted in the second round of the 2014 NBA draft, the 41st pick overall, while the announcement of his selection was reportedly made during a commercial break for a Taco Bell advertisement on television. Nobody expected much from the heavy-set Serbian center who preferred horses to highlight reels. What he became defied every expectation the sport had ever set. Jokic was not fast. He was not an explosive leaper. He did not dunk with ferocity or shoot with a flashy release. What he did was see the game differently from anyone else on the floor. His passing out of the post, his ability to find teammates in spaces they did not know were open, his calm and methodical dismantling of opposing defenses, it was something closer to chess than basketball. He won the MVP award 3 times in 4 seasons, and in 2023, he led the Denver Nuggets to their first championship in franchise history, winning Finals MVP in the process. The 41st pick, the Taco Bell pick, an NBA champion. The 2024 season belonged to the Boston Celtics. Boston had been knocking on the door for years, reaching the finals in 2022 only to fall short, accumulating talent and experience with every passing season. In 2024, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they finally broke through, defeating the Dallas Mavericks 4-1 and claiming the franchise's 18th championship, more than any team in NBA history. Jaylen Brown was named Finals MVP, a moment that felt deeply personal and earned for a player who had weathered years of criticism and doubt. And then came Oklahoma City and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The city that had lost Kevin Durant nearly a decade earlier had spent those years quietly rebuilding, patiently drafting, developing young players behind closed doors while the rest of the league looked elsewhere. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a fluid, impossibly smooth Canadian guard, had grown into one of the most gifted scorers the league had ever seen. In 2025, he averaged nearly 33 points per game and was named the league's most valuable player. The Thunder won 68 games that regular season, one of the most dominant performances in NBA history. They then carried that momentum into the playoffs, defeating the Indiana Pacers in a hard-fought 7 games to win Oklahoma City's first championship in the franchise's time in that city. The crowd in Oklahoma City celebrated through the night, a city that had grieved when Durant left, a franchise that had rebuilt quietly and patiently, a young team that had believed when nobody else was watching. They were champions. What makes this era so remarkable is not any single champion or any single story. It is the fact that from 2019 through 2025, the NBA crowned 7 different champions in 7 consecutive years, the longest such stretch of parity in history of the NBA. And so our journey through the NBA comes gently to an end. From its struggling beginnings, to dynasties that defied belief, to players who carried entire cities on their shoulders, the story of this league is really a story about people. People who refused to quit, who got back up after every loss, who who gave everything they had to a game they loved. The NBA is more than basketball. It always has been. Thank you for being here tonight. Sleep well.